And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome tonight Kate Christensen, aka Sydney Graves. Yes, she has an alias, and we're going to get the inside scoop. And we're going to hear all about her brand new book, The Arizona Triangle. Kate, or should I say Sydney, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Ravens. Tell us about this book and this alias.
So yeah, it's very cloak and dagger, isn't it? To write mysteries, what I hope will be a series. I think of this as my pilot to my series, if this were a TV show, which is not. But yes, why write under a pseudonym? Because I do not consider detective fiction or by any means any kind of genre, quote unquote genre fiction, different from literary fiction. It's all writing. It's all literature. I mean, the whole history of writing, I don't know how genre and literature got separated, but what I wanted to do with the Arizona Triangle and with my sort of detective writing was have another persona that I could write in. And I started this book, which is called The Arizona Triangle. I'm from Arizona, but I live in Taos, New Mexico. So that last interview you did was fascinating, totally fascinating. Fellow New Mexico resident. But
I know I said you were from Arizona, but your book
no, I am.
Arizona.
You're right.
Okay.
You didn't lie. But the book originated with the idea that I wanted to write about my home state, which I've never written about before. I lived there from the ages of 8 until all through high school. And so I essentially grew up in Arizona. I grew up in Phoenix, Tempe, and a ghost town called Jerome. And my mother lives in a little town called Oracle, which is an hour north of Tucson. And in recent years, I found myself spending a lot of time there in southern Arizona. And there are amazing foothills. They're sort of like outlaw country. You kind of like walk out of town into the foothills. You don't have to drive. They're right there. And you start climbing these foothills up toward Mount Lemmon. And I just kept thinking, I need to set a murder here. I don't know why. I just kept thinking this is an amazing spot for a detective series, or the opening to a detective series. So this book is about female friendship and trauma, and it's sort of about the repercussions. If I guess thematically, I wanted to write about the repercussions of deep trauma in childhood and how that affects everyone, sort of in a family system, in a friend system, and the idea of a murder mystery and who was killed and why sort of gradually dawned on me. And as it did, I thought, I kind of want to write this. I want to invent a detective who is not me at all, and I want to write under a different name. I'm a writer of straightforward just novels. They don't have anything. They're not detective novels. They don't have any descriptor in front of them. So I'm not calling them literary novels because again, I don't make that distinction. But so I've written a lot of novels, and I've been a writer for a very long time, and this is my first. I feel like Sydney Graves, which is it's a deliberately kind of gender fluid name, very different from mine, that shares initials with Sue Grafton, who is, I guess, my greatest influence, or one of them. And when I was young, I read the entire Kinsey Milhone series, and then I reread it during COVID lockdown, the entire Alphabet series, which is so good. And I loved her setting, which is, it's Southwestern noir. It's Santa Barbara, California, and this is Tucson, Arizona. But I feel like I sort of borrowed a lot, including her initials, for the setting and the tone and the strategy of the hard-boiled female detective and the voice. And I feel like Kinsey Milhone is Joe's mother. Jo Bailen is my detective, and if she has a detective mother, that's who it is.
So and really, we all want a detective mother,
right? I want a detective mother. I guess it's Sue Grafton.
Yes. Exactly. Well, I can't wait to chat with you about this book, your writing process, your alias, your, or should I say, pen name? That sounds a little less criminal, and all of the good stuff. But first, I just want to welcome everyone because we are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube. So, mystery and thriller loving friends, no matter where you're watching from, you are in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday because Mondays can be murder. We are going to make it a little less painful, give you that Monday night treat, and get your week off to a killer start. So if you've been with us before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask Kate, aka Sydney, about her writing process, about this detective, this PI, Joe, Justine, who goes by Joe, working in an all women's detective agency. I now is my new goal in life to do the same thing, and anything else that is weighing on your mind. Just get those questions going in the comments, and we will jump right in. John is joining us from Northeast Ohio. Hi, John. Welcome to the conversation. So good to see you pop up. We also had some questions submitted in advance, which I want to be sure to get to. But Kate, let's first jump into, okay, so usually you write just, regular novel, just fiction. Then you thought, as you were hiking through the beautiful Arizona, this would be a great place just to set a murder. You decided to write a detective novel, a PI novel in the as an homage to Sue Grafton in that style, and created this first book in a new series and a new genre for you. So has your writing process stayed the same? What was that process, or has it changed now that you're writing crime fiction?
Well, the fact that I'm writing crime fiction or detective fiction, or it comes out of the fact that I've read hundreds and hundreds of detective novels and loved them, and I
Yay!
sort of it's like I love series. I feel like I want to get in with a detective. I want to spend time. I want to like get to know this detective. And one of the things I love about detective series, and the reason I wanted to write it, and this is a way of answering your question about my writing process, is that I love the continuity of you're following a detective who is solving case after case after case, most of them murders usually. And I do love a murder. I do love I do love
murder.
I love a good murder. I mean, who doesn't? Why do we love murder so much? I don't know, but it's like a genre that I never get tired of. But I felt like I wanted to create a detective with a backstory, with vulnerabilities, with unanswered questions in her own life, and to have this first book be kind of a like I said, a pilot. A way of opening up her psychology as she's solving the crime. So as I was writing, and my writing process is discipline. I don't know any shortcuts. I don't have any fancy tricks. I just write every day, and I stay with it. And it gets so hard, and draft after draft, and through the difficulty, I feel like showing up every day is that's my writing process. It's
But
really
how do you show up? Do you show up? Is it, I have to get one chapter done? I have to get 1,000 words done. I have to write for 8 hours, whether it's 1,000 words or 10 words, or I'm not getting out of the seat until it's a good chapter. I don't care if it takes me 10 minutes. Is it, what if you're having a bad day and the words won't come? Do you give yourself the day off, or no, you're sitting there in that seat? Are you Dean Koontz, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and he eats only protein, which is a hard-boiled egg and string cheese for lunch because carbs, he says, slows him down? Are you writing with the, like, tell us more about the day in the life of Kate Christensen, aka Sydney Graves?
So that it's the same day. Although Sydney Graves is my writing persona. So my writing day is sort of, I have 2 dogs. I live with my husband, who is also a writer, but he writes TV and screenplays. So he's in a whole other discipline, which is nice. But he's really helpful about story. So I think the day really starts with coffee and crossword puzzles, and then a hike with the dogs in the mountains around Taos, or the gorge, down to the Rio Grande and back up. And the hike is a kind of meditative way to get into my writing day. Yeah, they are my editors. It's a kind of, I like waking up in the morning, doing a lot of puzzles, like every crossword puzzle, every word puzzle, just to wake up my brain. It's like piano exercises if you're, like just starting your practice session. and then a hike, and we don't talk, which is really nice because we are not morning people. So I wake up, I drink coffee, do the puzzles, wake up my brain, take a hike with the dogs and Brendan, my husband. And that's kind of the way to start thinking about that day's work. I get back, I might have a little more coffee, and I work in bed, propped up against a lot of pillows, and I open my file to whatever I was working on the day before, and do a little running jump into it, sort of fiddling with this and that, and sort of, seeing what I did. Oh, I hate this. I need to change this. Oh, this is good. And then I have from my hike and from sort of sleeping, I have a whole thing in my head of steam about what I need to change, what I need to add, what I need to like. So I have this sort of energy going into it. Doesn't always work. You're right. There are days when I'm like this. For one thing, it's, I don't know. I don't know what to do. But it's like muscles. It's like exercise. It's like you go to the gym and you feel like, oh, you're warm up, you're sluggish, it's the same exact thing. It's just something that I do every day. I guess I take a day off here and there, but when I'm generating a first draft, I try to write, a few pages here, maybe when I was younger, it was 1,000 words or 5 pages, whichever came first. And now it's a sort of feeling like, okay, I've generated all I can do. I need to save some for tomorrow. And then, that's my writing day. But as I get older, I'm less like butt in the chair, and I'm more like, I guess I could, run an errand. I guess I could like take a bath. I need to listen to this show on NPR right now. And I do love to have NPR in the background because it's so soothing. It's like,
Yes.
isn't it? It's those voices are like a bedtime story. So my writing day is pretty organic, but it's also, regular. It's organic and regular. Like my
Like
coffee.
the coffee I like. It's organic and regular. Dark roast.
Dark roast for sure.
Oh, right, exactly, especially in the world of Sydney Graves. No, it's so interesting though, because one time I was at a book event, and one of the other authors shared, she was like, I have never had a real job. I've only ever been a writer. And and she's like, and I keep bankers hours. So she got up at 6 a.m. She did her 75-minute yoga practice, and then she was in her chair, a button chair, at 7:30 a.m. and she worked unceasingly until 4 p.m. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, first of all, I spent 20 years in my corporate career before I was able to leave my corporate job and even try to be a writer. And I do not keep bankers hours. I can't. And I felt bad about that. I didn't tell her, but I felt bad because I felt shamed, within my own self, which is my issue, for years. For years, I felt bad. I'm like, well, I'm not a real writer because, this is a real writer and she's hugely, hugely successful. And then she wrote her last book, and she said, and she was talking about how she wrote it. She was like, it consumed me. I couldn't keep bankers hours. I wrote in the morning. I wrote at midnight. I wrote all out. And I was like, I can't believe I felt bad about my non-bankers hours all these years when finally, she's not on bankers hours. And it just made me realize that everybody's process is so different, and there's no right or wrong. And nobody should feel bad about, what their process is or isn't compared to someone else's.
No, you do what works. And I also sometimes when I'm hiking, I'll dictate into my phone. If I get an idea for a scene, it's a really good way to write dialogue, speak it out loud, and have characters. It reminds me of when I was little and I used to play pretend games and be characters with English accents and whatever. And but it's really similar. Like I become my characters on the hike. I hit record. This is when I'm hiking alone. And I start recording a conversation, putting it into an email and sending it to myself. So when I get home, I've generated a scene whilst on my hike, which feels like cheating.
Or maybe you're just being super, maybe you're being more mentally flexible. I love that. Maybe exactly as you said, you're getting, now you're able to do that. I mean, clearly it's working, because let's take a peek at some of this praise. I want to talk about this one from Publishers Weekly, which says, accomplished. Graves dazzling prose and well-drawn heroine make this well worth seeking out. So whatever it is that you're doing, Kate Sidney, it's working because, my God, look at this dazzling prose, well-drawn heroine, well worth seeking out. This is very high praise, and they are not the only ones raving. Let's take a peek at this one from the Library Journal, which says, this desert, I'm going to pop it up so we can all see it. This desert noir features complex characters trapped in an ugly emotional past. The vivid details and beauty of the Arizona landscape are in sharp contrast to the repellent secrets of the killer. So let's talk about these characters that you have created. What is the character drawing process like? The repellent killer and Jo, who we meet as she is, and I giggled, crouching outside of a window on a PI mission, a case, to catch a cheating spouse in the act, so to speak, and she sure does catch her in that act. So it gave me a giggle. But tell us
Good.
about the creating of Jo.
I wanted someone. The thing I like about Jo, and again, she is very much not me, but all of our characters are based on aspects of our personalities, and we contain multitudes. And so she both is and isn't me, or AKA Sydney Graves. She's almost 40. She is tall and strong and large, and she describes herself as being a monocolor. She's sort of the same color. Her eyes, hair, and skin are the same color as the Arizona dirt, which is reddish. Her pedigree is that she's half Mexican, but on her father's side, but the Bailens are Spanish and they are racist. And her father wanted nothing to do with his Mexican family. And I wanted this tricky family history, this family that doesn't acknowledge their Mexican background, because I want Jo to wrestle with that later in the series. And her mother is an Anglo wasp from back east, who's a snob and an elitist, and very chilly toward her daughter since Jo's father died. And so there's this whole sort of backstory, which I felt Jo. And the thing in the first draft was that she was too hard boiled, and my readers all said, "You know what? You need to warm her up. She's so tough. She doesn't have any vulnerability. Like, I cannot relate to her." And I was like, I made her too hard boiled. That's really something. Okay. And so I pulled back, and so the real creation of her character for me happened in the second draft. In the first draft, I was just full steam ahead. Murder, who did it, why, clues, getting the plot in place. And so in the second draft, I really thought about who Jo was, and it's about a friend of hers from childhood, and they've been estranged over a boy. But they had a love triangle. And the other thing about Jo is that she's queer, she's bisexual. And so this is another sort of, she's biracial, bisexual, and she's not really comfortable in any world. And I like this idea of having a detective whose own identity is fluid, literally, and also fluid sexually, and who is sort of finding out who she is on the cusp of 40, which is a time when you feel the oldest you feel in your entire life. And you feel this weariness of like the midlife crisis approaching 40. I don't know if you're over 40, but
I'm 47.
Oh my God. So so as you approach
I'm tired
40,
every day.
going up the hill, freaking out because you can't see over it. You just know you're about to hit the top of the hill. And then you turn 40 and you look down and you see death. You know the fact that you're going to die. And this
Listen,
is
I was feeling good until this conversation. Okay, now I'm not feeling so good.
We're talking about murder. I figured, it's only a hip and a hop and a skip to death. But I wanted her in this existential kind of fluid kind of, state, and solving murders, which I think is really interesting. And so her character emerged as a lot of questions. Who is she? Where's she going? What does she want? What's going to happen, in her own private life? And again, I'm stealing from Sue Grafton, and I'm also stealing from Dick Francis and all the great series where you keep reading because you love murder and you love the idea of solving a murder, don't we all? But you also keep reading because you want to know what happens next for the detective. And what kept me going through the Alphabet series, for example, with Kinsey Milhone, was like, what is going to happen with this guy she's in love with? What is going to happen with
Mm.
this cousin she's pretending she doesn't care about, and her whole family history? And so, yeah, so it's a tried and true kind of mode that I fell into with my own particular detective.
Robin says, wait, was 40 the top of the hill? No way. More like 60 for me. I know. I'm like, 40
Really?
is the new 20, Kate. Get
Well,
on
no,
board.
but I'm 62, and so let me just say that, the oldest I've felt in my entire life. I'm interested, Robin. I wanna hear more about what 60 is like for you, because for me, it's just like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. I'm not young anymore." I got that memo. And the idea turning 40 was a shock for me, and a sort of readjustment of who I thought I was, and what
Ooh.
life was, an existential crisis. So very interesting that it was 60. Yeah.
40 was also hard for me, I will say. 40 was particularly hard. And yeah, and it is interesting how that number, which isn't very old at all, is so meaningful and so impactful, and has this big clout attached to it. This is yeah, I it's this is very interesting stuff. And why is that? Why is it 40? I'm going to give this some extra thought. Sharon's joining us from Facebook. She says, "Hi girls.
Hi,
Hi."
Sharon.
She says, "I don't feel any different at 60."
Yeah, me neither.
I love it. I love it.
So being
Um,
in your 60s is really fun.
yeah. And I think, and I also wanted to talk about this, just what you were saying about Sue Grafton, about book list, weighing in with this praise, and talking about saying fans of action packed mysteries with strong female detectives like Sue Grafton's Kinsey Milhone will enjoy this series starter. I mean, knowing that you had taken this pseudonym, this pen name in homage to Sue Grafton SG, that you had created Joe in homage to Kinsey? Was this, I mean, when you got this blurb, what did that mean to you?
It was thrilling. I was, I'm an old war horse, really, with reviews and with reviews and reader responses and everything. I have a very tough hide. But as a debut mystery novelist named Sydney Graves, this is her first novel. It was exciting. I was excited, like, oh, they got it, absolutely got it, and I'm utterly flattered to be compared to Sue Grafton. And
That
I'm
must have been
glad that they think it's a strong female detective, because that's exactly what I set out to do.
that must have been a really big moment, and to see that celebrated, not just there, but also not just, by the trade pubs, but also, by major media like this one from the Santa Fe Reporter, saying this is a propulsive, taut, and occasionally anxiety provoking read with evocative Arizona desert environs. The Arizona Triangle may have provided Christensen with a break from her novel, but Sydney Graves brings the author's same uh perspicity,
Perspicacity? I've never actually said this aloud.
perspicacity. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah,
Perspicacity, and wit to this whodunit. Okay, that's amazing.
I know.
Yeah, and
It's
how
nice.
fabulous. Jane is joining us from Facebook saying age is just a number. I love that, Jane. Yes, age is just a number. We have to reinvent that. We have to flip the script and reinvent. 40 is the new 20. I'm declaring it. 60 is the new 40, and 40 is the new 20. We had some questions submitted in advance from we had a lot of people watch after the live, so I want to get to some of those as well. From Melissa, and she wanted to know about the process of your readers. Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. So, do you have this? You write it, then you share it with your beta readers, then you send it to your agent, then you send it to your. Walk us through that process.
Exactly. Well, so as I was saying at the beginning, I wrote this during COVID lockdown. I was in a farmhouse in New Hampshire with my husband and our dogs, and it's very remote New Hampshire, and it's really the middle of nowhere, and it was winter. And I was writing my last novel under my own name, which is called Welcome Home Stranger, and it wasn't working. And I was freaking out because, there's a stage in every novel where you just hit a knothole. So I hit this knothole, and then I thought, you know what? I was just in Arizona, and I was thinking again, walking through those foothills, about this murder that I just felt fictionally for myself, that I could just own and write about, and the state that I grew up in. And so I wrote it. I wrote a draft. And so once the draft was done, I sent it. I have a writing group in Maine where I used to live until 3 years ago. So I have a writing group that I've kept in Maine. So they are 4 other writers. We're 5 writers. So I gave it to them. And only one of them is a mystery fan. And the rest of them, yeah, they like it, I guess, but they don't really read them. The one who's a mystery fan had incredible feedback because she knows the genre, she knows the conventions, she knows what's expected, and her name is Monica Wood, and she actually gave me a blurb once the book. Now it's on the back of the book, and I'm thrilled to have her name on it. So I gave it to my writing group, and I also gave it to a few friends, some mystery fans, some not, just to see. I think it's interesting to have people you trust. My husband too, obviously, who is a screenwriter.
Here's
So
that
there it
blurb.
is. That's Monica's blurb. And all of them were very encouraging, and I felt that was good. And they all had good sort of, this doesn't make sense. Maybe you want to say this earlier. Maybe and writing a detective novel, you're really creating a murder. You have to figure out. My friend Gretchen said, "Well, you have to have a murder within the first 50 pages." That's just a rule. She's read
Get the killing going. Those bodies got to drop.
We need a death. And so she thought my murder took too long to get to.
Okay. Wait,
and,
how many pages did it take?
I'm not sure. I guess I would have to look at it to
Like
remember.
500 in, and then nobody had died yet?
I think I broke her rule, but did I? I don't know.
No, wait. You're talking about the first draft?
I'm talking about the first draft, right?
So how many was it really? It was more than 50 in, and she said, "I need it within the first 50."
Well, she was just talking hypothetically because I kept saying, "I hope the murder happens soon enough for you." And then she read it and she said, "Yes, I think it works."
Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
Sharon says, okay,
perspicacity,
the quality of having ready insight into things, shrewdness. Okay, learning a new word today. Yes. I'm excited. Thank you, Sharon. I was going to look that up. Thank you. Thank you to my partner in crime, Sharon from YouTube. Yay. Okay. So Peter Swanson also had a beautiful blurb for you. He said the Arizona Triangle is a taut, propulsive, and darkly funny. And I'm glad I liked that he touched on the humor, modern noir. And Joe Bailen. Wait, is it Bailen?
It's Bailen.
Bailen. Okay.
Or Bailen.
I was saying Bailen. In my mind, when you're reading, you're just like, you're hearing it, but then you go to say it out loud and you're like, wait, much like perspicacity. How does one say that? The complex protagonist of this twisted Arizona whodunit is a welcome addition to the pantheon of sleuths with big appetites and bulldog instincts, gritty entertainment at its best. What a lovely, I actually met Peter at MWA at Mystery Writers of America, New England Crime Bank last year.
He's a lovely person. I've met him too. He's great. And I love his books.
Yay. Yes. Okay. And then we had another question also submitted from Alan saying your writing career is long and admirable. What about any advice for someone just starting out?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, thank you for asking that. This is something I never tire of talking about. The whole, it's like, I'm not sure how old this person is and what his experience is coming to writing, so I'll just speak very generally. I feel like when you're just starting out, there's always the question of what kind of writer am I? What is my voice? What do I want to say? And there's all this anxiety because you've read, Tolstoy and and Sue Grafton and and Stephen King and Dostoevsky and Jane Austen, or whoever you've read and loved, and all the geniuses you've read, and you feel this sort of need, which is, I think writing is imitative, and this is why I'm writing detective novels, because I've read and loved so many. And when you write, you want to, when you read, you want to, if you're a writer, you want to do it yourself. So I think my advice is not only to keep at it, which is non-negotiable. Write every day, every day. If you don't write every day, your project gets cold and withers. It's like a plant or a little chia. It's a chia pet. It's a little Tamagotchi,
Oh, I
or
love that
it's something that
because I have
needs nurturing. What?
I'm a crazy plant lady, so that's working well for me.
Yeah, it's like a plant or a it's a living thing that needs nurturing, and if you go away from it, it will wither up, and so there's that, and that will take you 3 days at least to get back into it, and you'll hate it because it will be mad at you. So don't leave it alone, but also write the things you think you're not supposed to say. And
Ooh.
whether or not you end up publishing them, it's a way of, I'm not really a big believer in prompts or anything. I like to put all my attention on the project I'm working on. But there are sort of a lot of really good books out there with exercises, and one of them is by a friend of mine named Allegra Houston, who lives here in Taos, and it's called Write What You Don't Know. And I can't recommend it highly enough. If you're starting out and you're stuck, I also don't believe in the muse. I don't believe in anything except discipline and
Well,
the desire to write.
if let's get into this.
Okay.
Let's unpack this a little more, Kate. If you don't believe in the muse, where is this story coming from? Where is this Joe Bailen
Right.
coming from? Where is who you have created something out of nothing, drawn, as you said, from your own different aspects of your personality. But haven't you had that transcendent moment where you just feel what yogis would say, in the flow, where you feel
Yeah.
in divine flow and the words are just flowing through you and you almost feel like more of a transcriber, than a creator? Where is that coming from if there is no muse?
So I think that it comes from discipline. And I think discipline is the way you open up your soul, mind, heart, your being, your creative self to access all of that in you, in your own imagination. It comes from yourself, but you have to lay, again, plants. You have to prepare the ground. You have to water. You have to nurture yourself as a writer, and give yourself the space, the time, the thoughts, the dreams, all of it. Give your imagination and your verbal sort of, the writerly self, the I don't believe there's some muse out there who's imbuing you with all this. I think you have it in you, which to me feels really exciting. Like, I've got it in me, I just need to unlock it. How do
Ooh,
how do I unlock it? How do I open
how
up
do you unlock it?
the top of my head so that I can give birth to Athena,
Yeah.
or whoever, that Zeus giving birth to the goddess through the
Yeah.
top
How
of
do
your
you unlock
head?
it?
How do you unlock it, right? Well,
Yeah.
you write, and I discover a lot of things just by writing, and I don't know things until I have written them. And this feeling that you're talking about is sort of it's like that gravy. It's the juice of writing. It's when you feel a thing has a life of its own, and you're just transcribing it, and your imagination is racing ahead of you. This is why I like dictating sometimes into my phone, because I can get it down fast as I think it. And the excitement comes from having done the preparatory work and having shown up every stupid day in one way or another. Like, even if you don't write a page, you're still in your manuscript. Like, open your file, think about it, take a note, get an idea, something. Like, interact with your project every day. And to me, I mean, I don't know any other way to sort of get that. This is what I mean by there's no muse. Like, I don't, it's not like, I feel this like presence, this divine presence shining on me that says Joe is, should do this, or whatever, or it's
Joe is too hard boiled.
yeah, thanks, beta readers.
I love it. Well, the other thing that I wanted to touch on, Kate, is something you said actually at the beginning, the very beginning, and I just made a mental note. I really want to get back to that because I have noticed I transitioned over from another genre. My first book was a memoir, and now I am in the mystery and thriller, true crime genre. But I love it here. I was a lifelong mystery reader, Nancy Drew girl. All
Same.
all of the faves, and it has always been what I read, and never thought I could do it. And then I just thought, now that I'm over 40, if not now, then when?
Good
Um,
for you. So
but
how did you start?
how did I start?
Yeah.
Well, I found this story, or I would say, because I'm a yogi, so I am a bit of a mystic. I would say the story found me, because my book is a true story, and I feel like I was looking for a story, and the story was looking for a teller, and we found each other, and and I channeled it, I told it, but I chose to tell it, and to honor the lives of these real people, and to get them onto the page. um but one thing that that I really noticed as I moved into the mystery thriller genre is that there is a bias against it by those who are not in the genre, which is what you were touching on in the beginning of the conversation, saying, that a lot of people who consider themselves literary will look down their aquiline noses at the genre, at this genre that I love, that you love, that so many of us love. And I'm not quite sure why that is. And I thought you said it so beautifully right when we first started. You're not sure when it split, when when literary and detective novels split. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, I mean, I think in a way every novel's a detective novel, and I think there's like when you're writing a genre detective novel, you're actually writing about a murder, and there is literally a detective, and there's also a victim, and so you have a victim and a detective and a criminal, and you have that's the Arizona Triangle, really. I mean, that's the
Thanks for all
triangle.
the heart. This is resonating. Thanks for all the hearts on Facebook, you guys. I see you. This is resonating. Keep
Oh,
going.
good. I'm so glad. But I feel like, okay, as writers, we are criminals. We're committing a crime by writing the book. And the reader comes in as the detective and kind of solves it and reads it. And we need our readers to come in and solve the crime we've committed by writing this book. And we're not murdering anyone, not literally. We're actually creating something. But there is a sort of resonance in detective fiction. And this is one of the things I really love about it. I feel like it's so universal. And it's so much about the act of reading. And it's like, I also love true life adventure novels, people who go out
Yeah.
into the wilderness and like risk their lives. I cannot get enough of that. And
Yes.
there's a sense of kind of knowing the elements. This is genre, I guess. And this is what's different from literary fiction, if there is a difference. Then in genre, you kind of know what elements you're going to get, and you bring a certain set of expectations. I will know who killed this person by the end of the book. That's one of them. But I think that, okay, if we go back to Crime and Punishment, or we go back to, and then there's Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein, which is arguably the first horror novel, or speculative fiction or whatever. But then you go way back before that to the Greeks, and there's all kinds of sort of elements of detective fiction in literature, in
Ooh.
Shakespeare, in and Wilkie Collins. I mean, he's considered a literary writer, but those are ghost stories, and you know so I feel like writing with the elements of genre is literature. It's like, how many novels have been inspired by Jane Austen? She invented the romance genre in a way. She and Charlotte Bronte and the other Bronte, Emily Bronte.
All those Brontes.
The
Yes.
Brontes and Jane Austen kind of invented the Gothic and Edwardian sort of romance. So when I talk about genre, it's always with quotation marks around it, because I don't believe in genre. I taught at the Iowa Writers Workshop, and a lot of my students were writing sort of stuff that would have been called genre 20 years ago, but now it's fiction. It's story. It's like we're all telling stories. We are
Mm,
all creating characters. We're all making stuff up. What does it matter what we call it? And so
mm.
for me, writing under a pseudonym, and I was worried that this would give this impression, it's that it has nothing to do with thinking,
Right.
you know,
She's
oh, well,
embarrassed to write genre.
right, no.
Like, she's so mortified. She has to write under it. She is so mortified to write a
Right,
lowly
and just
detective novel. She has to wear a trench coat and a fedora and call herself Sydney.
right. Nope, nope, it's just that it's fun, and so I think that anything that makes writing fun is something that you should do.
Oh, I
It's
love that.
and
I
also
love
because if I'm writing a series, I want it to have its own author name, because it's distinguished from my other books, so if it's Sydney Graves, then you know it's a Joe Bailen mystery.
Yes.
You know, it's just expedient and fun.
Exactly. Exactly. And so many people have that, in J.K. Rowling's has her Harry Potter books and she has her Robert Galbraith novels. And, and that way you're clear that you're not going to get a wizard in, you're not going to no wizards and wands in the Galbraith novels. And,
That's
and
exactly
you
right.
know what you're getting. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very clear.
yeah.
And it's so interesting to me because, when I moderated the mystery panel at the Boston Book Festival last year, or sorry, 2 years ago. And I said, I was like, I don't understand this, slant against mysteries and thrillers because the engine of any story is a mystery. What's going to happen? Is this going to work out?
That's
That's what
exactly right.
drives the story forward. So the idea that those writers who want who for who their writerly identity is so important to say, I'm literary, I would never read this, I would never write a mystery novel, I would never read a thriller. It's like, what do you think's moving your story forward?
Yeah, and more literary novels should probably have engines like that. Like, if you're in a literary novel and you're bored, you kind of think, "Where's the engine and where's the mystery?" So, it works both ways. I feel like a detective novel with a good detective and a good sort of world, because you're also building a world, just like in a literary novel. You want the world, and I wanted Tucson. I wanted Southern Arizona, which is, famously like beautiful, but also weird. It's a weird place. It's like white culture has been plunked on top of this ancient indigenous land, with sacred plants and animals and mountains and
Mm.
sort of you sit in an In-N-Out burger, and I have this scene early on in the novel where she's eating a burger at In-N-Out,
You're
looking out.
getting lots of thumbs up on Facebook, Kate.
Oh, it's she's looking out at the mountain that the Hohokam considered sacred and marveling at the disjunction between what is it to be a white person in Arizona, which is something
Mm.
that I asked myself the entire time I was growing up there. What does it mean to be a white? It's different to be a white person in Berkeley, where I was born and spent the first, it's not as, it's, you don't feel as weird being a white person. But in Arizona, you totally do. And I felt completely out of place and vaguely sort of curious about, like, why do I feel so out of place? And in third grade at Flora Thu School in Tempe, which is an amazing school, my teacher, Mrs. Clothier, an amazing teacher, had us make dioramas of native life. And I chose the Hopi tribe. And I have this visceral memory of building my little diorama and imagining myself into this. It was a fantastic assignment. And we were all different, we were Native, we were Mexican, we were white, we were, all different kinds of people in my class. So it wasn't just white kids. But for me, as a very white person, I'm as white as you can be. Building this diorama was like a way into Arizona. It was like a way into imagining what Arizona really is, and this illusory sort of, these ticky-tacky like McMansions and big box stores, and it's so weird there. Like, anyone who goes there must feel that weirdness. And it was weird to grow up there. And that was something I wanted to get at also. I don't even know what question I'm answering now, but
It's so interesting though, because I made my first trip to Arizona 4 years ago and went hiking in Sedona. And I had never been to Arizona, and there is a tangible, palpable, vibrating energy in those red rocks. And when you get out miles and miles away from other humans and you are in those vibrant red rocks, and you feel there is a tangible energy just pulsating through the air, and there is nothing, I've never felt anything like that. um like those red rocks and that energy. I mean, it is a very
Powerful.
intense and amazing experience to be there.
Taos, where I live now, has a similar quality.
Mm.
Right out my bedroom window when I'm working, I see the sacred mountain, El Monte Sagrado, which the pueblo, the pueblo is built around it, and it's a presence, and it feels sentient. And
I love that. I love that. Well, we are out of time. Time flies when you're having this much fun, but I want to just share again. The book is available from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. So order now, whether you're watching with us on Facebook or YouTube, and get your mitts on the Arizona Triangle. Here is that link. So that you can immerse yourself in the world of Joe Bailen and the Arizona Triangle. Right here is that link. Kate, thank you so much for coming on to give us the inside scoop about all of this. And thank you all for spending your Monday with us, your Mystery Monday. And thank you for everyone who commented. And thank you for everyone who is watching and didn't comment. Thank you to Liz, Mary Jane, Karen, Kate C., Kate D, Shayna, Christine, I see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Connie, we have a lot of C's today. Jerry, Marissa, Jane, Carolyn, Terry with an I, Terry with a Y, Vo. Thank you so much, Barb. Great to have you. Charles, Enner, Sharon H, Nancy, John, Dan, Polly, Rachel, Jane B, Jane C, Mary, and a Sydney with an I.
Hi, Sydney.
Yay, Sydney, you're in the right place. Although it'd be crazy if we had a Sydney G, a Sydney Graves. I'm sure you'll meet one eventually. All right, y'all, that is a wrap. Thank you so much. Kate, be sure to come back and visit us next time you have a book out. All right, y'all, that's a wrap.
Thank you so much.
Yay! May the pages and the days fly by.